Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my double Game Week 7 preview. This is the first double game week of the season, albeit a very small one. And in today's video we're going to preview the double game week and discuss which players you should be buying, which players you should be selling, and other key dilemmas that you have. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, we did it. We hit 100,000 subscribers. If you weren't tuned into the Game Week 6 deadline stream, we actually managed to hit it on the Game Week 6 deadline stream. And it was amazing to be able to celebrate that with you. And so as a result, to celebrate, I'm doing a big 100,000 subscriber giveaway, which I'm going to announce in a second the details of. So do stick around to find out how to enter. But very briefly, I just wanted to say thank you because this was the best decision I ever made, to be completely honest. Starting this YouTube channel 2 years ago, just for a bit of fun, I never in my wildest dreams thought we would hit 100,000 subscribers 2 years later. But here we are, and as cliche as it sounds, it is completely down to you guys, because if you don't tune in every week and watch the content and provide me with the support and the kind comments and the community that we've built on the deadline streams, if you weren't there to watch me, then I probably wouldn't still be sat here giving you trying to give advice anyway on a weekly basis. So thank you. If you are someone that tunes in regularly, if you are one of the 100,000 subscribers, just know that you have changed my life for the better. And I could sit here for hours and try to put into words how grateful I am, because believe me, I truly am, but I still don't feel like it would do it justice. But just know that my life is so much better off for having done this channel. I get such joy on a weekly basis through creating content, and hopefully that is clear to you, both in the videos and the streams, how much I enjoy doing this alongside you guys. So thank you so much for the support across the last couple of years. It's very emotional. Like, this has been some of the best years of my life. So thank you so much for being a part of that. And as a result, I do want to give back in some way. So what I'd like to do is a giveaway. And now I did go back and forth between, should I just do a giveaway for one person and make it a massive prize? But I want to try and give back to at least a few of you. So 5 of you will be winning a Premier League jersey of choice. And this is an international giveaway. So it's not just for the UK. Wherever you are in the world, if you are one of the winners, I will get a Premier League jersey of choice to you. And if I can't do that, I will get you the equivalent in cash, either PayPal or an Amazon voucher or some kind. So this is a truly international giveaway because this is an international community and I don't want to just give back to those in the UK. So there will be 5 winners. Unfortunately, YouTube isn't very good for giveaways. So we're going to do the giveaway over on Instagram. And as you can see on the screen at the moment, all you need to do is follow me on Instagram at FPL__Raptor. There'll be a link in the pinned comment and a link in the description. And I'd like you to like both of my pinned posts. There is one of me and Stormzy, there's some photos there, and then one of me and Chunks. So all you have to do is like the post with Stormzy, like the post with Chunks, follow me, just those 2 steps, or I suppose 3 steps, and that enters you into the giveaway. And that is it. And as you can see, I don't have that many followers on Instagram, so you have a pretty good chance. Now, the way that we're going to do it is one person, or 5 people, I should say, will be selected at random based on if you have liked the pinned post and making sure that you follow me as well. Do make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. And I will be announcing it after the Game Week 7 deadline. So you have the next week to enter. Again, all you have to do is follow me, like both the pinned posts, and this could be a home kit, it could be an away kit, it could be a third kit, and like I said, it does not matter what country you're in, 5 of you will be winning because this is an international community, and I want to do something to give back to you. So let me know if that's not clear in the comments. Do make sure to follow me on Instagram, like those 2 pinned posts, and hopefully there'll be more giveaways in the future as well. But I just want to say, for one final time, thank you so much for helping me to hit 100,000 subscribers. So we are going to start today's video by discussing Bryan Mbeumo, a player that, let's be honest, we've probably discussed to death on this channel across pre-season and the opening game weeks too. But normally, because we think he's a great asset, people thinking, should we buy him? Is Bryan Mbeumo essential? Was actually the discussion in game week 2 or game week 3. But today we're going to discuss, should we and can we maybe sell Bryan Mbeumo? And I know that might seem like a crazy question, but it was a question that I received 4 or 5 times over on Twitter when I asked for your questions for the game week preview. And I don't think it's as simple as just saying no, because there are so many great options at the moment. Maybe you're looking at the likes of a DRB, who's putting up good data and has good fixtures to come. You probably want to squeeze a Salah into your team. Maddison and Son have really nice fixtures coming up, on top of maybe wanting to own maybe one Manchester United, one Arsenal midfielder. So there are lots of players that you might want to own instead. And people want to know, can they sacrifice Bryan Mbeumo? So let's first discuss the fixtures. They're not bad across the next 5. 3 away fixtures, which isn't ideal, but 2 home fixtures in there, which are decent ones against Burnley and West Ham. Manchester United aren't the best defence at the moment, despite it being a red fixture on the ticker. And Forest away can be a tricky game, but it's certainly not a game that you wouldn't expect Brentford to get chances. So I would say that the fixtures are average for Brentford, but beyond game week 11, they're not great. And I'll be honest, I'm currently, anyway, eyeing up a game week 9 or 10 wildcard. I don't think I'll have Brian Mbeumo on my wildcard. So if you're thinking, I might not want him in around game week 10, 11, 12, the fixtures aren't perfect by any means over the next 4 or 5. Can he make way? And based on the fixtures, I don't hate it. Based on the data, I also don't hate it as well, because there has been a drop-off in the last 3 game weeks. The first 3 game weeks, his data was exceptional. Not only due to the penalties, even if you remove those, he was top for non-penalty expected goal involvement for quite a while over the opening 3 or 4 game weeks. But since then, it's just tailed off a little bit to the point now where he's just putting up decent data. We're looking at 5.95 expected FPL points per 90, which is very, very good for his price, but only about a 0.5 non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90. And I say only, that is very, very good. And the reason that it's very, very good is not only because that data is decent, he's getting 0.39 non-penalty expected goals per 90, which is basically every 3 games he'll accumulate about 1 non-penalty expected goals. But there are 2 things that also help him. Number 1, he actually plays 90 minutes. And we discuss this a lot. Per 90 data is very useful. But if I'm saying Darwin Núñez has brilliant per 90 data, but he averages 52 minutes per appearance, well, then the per 90 data is not particularly important. It's not particularly relevant. Brian Mbeumo actually gets 90 minutes every single game. So that data is maybe slightly better in comparison to players that come off around 70 or 80 minutes. And on top of that, he is on penalties and he is on set pieces too. And these are other strings to his bow, it's other routes to points. So whilst his 0.5 non-penalty expected goal involvement maybe looks average alongside the likes of Eze, Diaby, Maddison, Son, Sterling, Bruno, Rashford, it's not quite as good as all of them. When you take into account how good his minutes are and the penalties and the assist threat that he can carry through set pieces from time to time, he's probably slightly better than maybe when you first glance at the data. So to put that all together, fixtures considered, all of the positives that I've considered and his data, is Brian Mbeumo a sell? He's definitely not an obvious sell. I wouldn't sit here and say that, yeah, I think he's a clear sell, even if the fixtures got more difficult. But I certainly also wouldn't sit here and say that he's essential. And I certainly wouldn't put you off making a move away from him if there is a player that you desperately want and you don't want to sell any of your other 4 midfielders, because FPL is about taking risks. And at the moment, Brian Mbeumo is a highly owned player that has delivered quite a lot of points over the first 6 game weeks. But there are other players that are coming into their own with very similar data, maybe also getting good minutes with good fixtures too. And I do keep pointing back to a Diaby, because maybe you're not looking to wildcard, and maybe your team is in a position where you can't have Mbeumo and Diaby. I would argue that I would, from now on, and specifically from around game week 9, 10 onwards, I would probably prefer Diaby to Mbeumo. So yeah, I'm not going to give you an opinion and just say, yes, sell him or yes, keep him. It's very team dependent, but it's certainly not as obvious as it was in the opening 3, where I would have said you're absolutely crazy to consider selling him, because the best fixtures for Brentford have arguably gone now. He's obviously already had 2 penalties this season as well. Yes, his data's good, but it's not exceptional by any means, and there has been a bit of a drop-off in recent weeks. So, yeah, I don't mind selling Mbeumo. I'd love to know what you're going to do with him down below in the comments. For me, I'm definitely not selling him in game week 7, just because all of the players that I want, I would argue their fixtures aren't that much better, and I've only got 1 free transfer. So I don't feel the need to rush Mbeumo out of my team in game week 7. But game week 8, maybe game week 9, or definitely on a game week 10 wildcard, he may well be making way. So a player that a lot of people are looking to maybe bring in for Brian Mbeumo, or just bring into their midfield in general, is Anthony Gordon. A player that, to be honest, I've completely neglected discussing here on this channel, and I don't really know why, because the data is exceptionally strong. I think probably the real reason why is the fixtures, and they haven't been great over at least the opening 4/5 game weeks for Newcastle. Game week 6 was, of course, the first good fixture, but he is turning a few heads, and he is worth considering. The main reason that he's worth considering, alongside the good fixtures, of course, and alongside the data which we'll discuss, is that Harvey Barnes has picked up an injury and now looks like he could be out long term. And Harvey Barnes really is the only real serious rotation sort of risk and threat for Anthony Gordon. Anthony Gordon has started 5 of the opening 6 game weeks. He looks relatively nailed on. Barnes was the only slight rotation risk with him. And if he's out, I would argue that you'd expect Anthony Gordon to start the majority of games. The real issue that I've got with him at the moment, and it is only one issue, is he's on 4 yellow cards. And of course, once he picks up a 5th yellow card, he gets suspended for 1 game. Now, I do sometimes wonder, do we maybe overthink this and blow it out of proportion? Like, if he misses 1 game, but you're bringing him in for the long term, is that an issue? Maybe not, especially if you've got a good bench and maybe the game that he misses is either West Ham away or maybe Arsenal at home, then all of a sudden you're in a good position. But let's say you get suspended before Crystal Palace at home or Wolves away and you don't have the strongest bench. it does create a bit of an issue in your team. And then you're either forced to play a suboptimal player in that week or maybe sell him and then you'd want him back again anyway. So it does create a very tricky situation when someone's on 4 yellow cards. And you might say, well, he'll know he's on 4 yellows, so he'll be a lot more careful. But we saw with Jackson this week, Jackson was on 4 yellow cards going into game week 6, and he got suspended. He picked up another yellow card. So it's not as simple as just saying that Gordon won't pick up his 5th yellow. Maybe he will be a bit more careful, but I feel like he's got the temperament where he finds it very, very easy to pick up yellows. So that does put me off slightly, but maybe it doesn't put you off enough. And I still think he's worth considering because, as I said, the fixtures are great. And actually, game week 11 to sort of game week 14, I think it is roughly, are the only few difficult fixtures that Newcastle have. Because between game week 7 and game week 10, and then from sort of game week 14 onwards, the fixtures are absolutely brilliant for Newcastle. And if you look from 7 to game week 19 at the halfway point of the season, I should say Newcastle have the best fixtures in the league from an attacking perspective. So I absolutely love the idea of getting a Newcastle attacker in. And you would argue that Gordon is probably even more nailed than the likes of Isak and Wilson at the moment. Moving on to the data, it's so good, right? It's really, really good. And I didn't realize how good it was until I looked into it. But we're looking at a 5.21 expected FPL points per 90, which is pretty decent. Non-penalty expected goals of 0.31 per 90. So a very decent goal threat there. He's not on penalties, of course, but very decent open play goal threat. And a 0.48 expected assist, which is elite levels of creativity. That puts him together at a 0.79 non-penalty expected goal involvement. And he's involved in over 1 big chance per 90 as well. So I love the idea of Anthony Gordon. If he wasn't on 4 yellows, I would seriously be considering bringing him in this week for Burnley at home. The fact that he's on 4 yellows just makes me want to wait until he picks up that 5th, which could come in like 5 to... It might not come at all, or it could come in like 5 to 10 game weeks. It just puts me off a little bit because, yes, my bench is probably stronger than most, but I still most weeks don't really want to use my bench because I've picked players in a way that they rotate, right? So in the weeks that are players on my bench, they're probably either not a great player or they don't have a great fixture. So most weeks I would want him in my team. I can't really afford to have him benched. So I would love to know down below, this is more of sort of a macro point rather than just Anthony Gordon specific. How much does a player being on 4 yellows bother you? Does it make you not want to bring them in? I certainly wouldn't be selling Anthony Gordon, but does it affect your decision around transferring him in? Or am I overthinking it? Because maybe I am. If you do think I'm overthinking it, bring him in because that data is exceptional. Newcastle, we saw the way they absolutely demolished Sheffield United. And yeah, Sheffield United aren't a great defence, but they are an elite attack, one of the best in the league. They will continue to get chances and score goals. My only slight concern is, yes, Anthony Gordon doesn't have as much sort of rotation threat now that Harvey Barnes is out, but that doesn't mean that he'll start every game, especially due to the fact that, of course, Newcastle are in the Champions League, and I think that will probably affect his minutes slightly, but I think they are secure enough to consider bringing him in. So I'd love to know your opinion down below on Anthony Gordon. 2 other midfielders that people are considering at the moment that maybe we haven't particularly looked at over the opening 6 is James Ward-Prowse and Jared Bowen. West Ham's fixtures are beginning to improve now, and definitely around a game week 9 or 10 wildcard, you are going to probably want at least one West Ham player. So maybe get them in this week. Yes, game week 8 and game week 9 aren't ideal against Newcastle and Aston Villa, but that Sheffield United fixture, we saw what Newcastle did to them. West Ham are looking really, really good at the moment. It's a fixture that you kind of want a piece of. So I don't mind the idea of maybe moving a couple of weeks early and bringing in a Newcastle asset this week. And I'll be honest, I've just got this negative perception around James Ward-Prowse as an FPL asset, and I'll try to explain why, but I thought it would be interesting to look at comparing Ward-Prowse and Bowen and see if it is worth spending the extra money on Bowen. So my reason for having a negative perception around James Ward-Prowse, again, as an FPL asset, because he is an exceptionally talented footballer and one of the best sort of dead ball specialists we've probably ever seen in world football, let alone Premier League history, but he's just a little bit too defensive for my liking. Now, his role has changed at West Ham. I would argue he's playing a slightly more attacking role at West Ham than he did at Southampton. But just look at his touch map. And touch maps don't tell you the entire picture, but this is defense at the bottom to attack at the top. You can see he's playing almost like a quarterback. Like he's playing as like a defensive midfielder for large spells. He picks up the ball very deep, sprays passes, and yes, he does get into the box. You can see he does get touched in the box, but they are few and far between. And yes, he's had a few big chances, which is part of the reason that his data is actually okay from a goal threat perspective. But outside of those 1 or 2 big chances he's had, he doesn't regularly get the opportunity to score goals. But he's exceptional at free kicks, and he's absolutely brilliant at taking shots outside the box. So maybe he doesn't need to get tons of shots in the box in order to pick up goals. And if he ticks along with lots and lots of assists as well from set pieces and just from open play passes and crosses, then maybe he doesn't need to be playing an attacking role. And I think maybe I let my football knowledge and understanding impact my FPL decisions a little bit too much sometimes, because Rodri is another player that, whilst when you watch games he feels very defensive, he does still pop up in the box and he's still putting up decent data. So maybe the likes of Ward-Prowse and Rodri are better FPL assets than I'm giving them credit for, because when we then look at the data for Ward-Prowse, it's been pretty good this season, right? He's very, very nailed. We're looking at a 0.25 non-penalty expected goals, which means every 4 games, he'll pick up an expected goal. If he picks up an actual goal every 4 games, that's pretty decent for his price. And we're looking at a 0.32 expected assist per 90. So he's picking up an expected assist every 3 games. So if every 3 games he gets an assist and every 4 games he gets a goal, that's not a bad output for a player at 6.2 million. And especially with the fixtures they've got coming up, maybe there'll actually be an improvement in some of this data too. And like I said, he's involved in over 1 big chance per 90. So maybe I just need to stop letting my prior knowledge of James Ward-Prowse and my understanding of football and not wanting a defensive midfielder because they feel very defensive in my team. And I know Ward-Prowse isn't playing as just a defensive midfielder, but it just feels like I want my player closer to goal. And maybe this is a bit of a fallacy in the way that I think, because it's one of the reasons that I love the likes of Sterling and Son. And I know Sterling hasn't been great, but I like my players in the box. I like my players getting the opportunities on a regular basis to score goals. So that's what's putting me off Ward-Prowse a little bit. But the data for Bowen, when we're looking at expected goal involvement in general, is exactly the same as Ward-Prowse, right? It's not much better anyway. So the difference with Bowen as opposed to Ward-Prowse is most of Bowen's expected goal involvement is made up through XG, which basically means he's quite a big goal threat and he's not creating that much. So you can see here, Bowen is getting 0.49 non-penalty expected goals per 90, which is double what Ward-Prowse is getting. So he has double the goal threat of Ward-Prowse. So rather than every 4 games getting an expected goal, every 2 games he's getting 1. And I think that is a big difference in goal threat. And really, yes, assists are nice. And yes, the likes of De Bruyne and Fernandes have put up great FPL points in the past by being creative. So is Kieran Trippier, for example. But you really do want players in your team that get goals, especially midfielders, because they get more bonus points. They get an extra point for a goal as well. So extra 2 points for a goal. So I feel like it is a massive advantage to have goal scorers as opposed to assisters. However, again, when we're looking at just general output, general expected FPL points, there's not a massive amount of difference between them. When we're looking at big chance involvement, there's not a massive amount of difference between them. And there is £0.9 million more to pay for Bowen in comparison to Ward-Prowse. So I guess I can't sit here and slander Ward-Prowse. It's just, he's not a pick that I like. I will not be putting Ward-Prowse in my wild card. I want my players closer to goal. I want my players putting up more goal threat than they do assist threat. And Bowen, for me, just feels like a greater goal threat. All of that to say, I don't really hate either of them as options. And I think with the fixtures that they've got coming up, especially this week, but like I said, from game week 10 onwards, I think you're going to want at least one West Ham asset, maybe like an Areola, and then one of Bowen or Ward-Prowse, I think will be absolutely ideal in our teams. For me, on my game week 9/10 wildcard that I'm planning, Bowen is looking very, very likely at the moment if West Ham can continue this form. So, of course, this is double game week 7. Burnley and Luton both have a double game week. Luton definitely have the better fixtures against Everton and Burnley, whereas Burnley obviously have Newcastle and Luton. So I think we probably are more so targeting the Luton players, if at all. But I guess the question comes, is this a double game week that we are interested in? Should we be going out and buying assets from these teams? And also for some of us that own assets already, maybe you own a Kabore or a Bayer, should you be starting them ahead of some decent single game week options? For example, if you've got Kabore with a double game week, should you start him ahead of the likes of an Estepinian? So we're going to discuss all of that in this section here. And of course, Morris is the main one that a lot of people are looking at too. I'll be honest, I think there's 2 things to note here. Firstly, I'm an absolute sucker for a double game week. I love double game weeks. I will find myself sometimes bringing in assets that are definitely not optimal to own, don't have the best data, maybe don't even have the best double game week, but I just love double game weeks. But for some reason, I just can't get on board with this double game week. I'm just not interested overly in Burnley and Luton, number one as teams, but also the players with it. It's not even like, because sometimes I say, it doesn't matter if a team is good. Sometimes they have a really good asset from that team. I'll think of someone like a Fulham, although Fulham were pretty good last season. Like they have Mitrovic. Like I don't need the team to be good. Sometimes they have just a really good asset that I really want. But I look at both of these teams and unfortunately no one really stands out to me. But I do think there are a couple of decent options. And I definitely think most double game week players that you have are probably worth starting because you get 2 bites at the cherry. So we'll start with Trafford and Kaminsky. both goalkeepers I actually think are two of the better options for this double if you are looking for a double game week player, and maybe you've got someone like a Pickford that you just don't trust, or maybe you've got Johnston and you're thinking of moving on because you think he'll lose his place soon. I actually don't mind Trafford and Kaminsky because they're both going to make a decent amount of saves. And even beyond the double game week, if they have an okay fixture, you wouldn't mind starting them in 1 or 2 game weeks. But what I would say is, if you're looking longer term, you wouldn't want Trafford or Kaminsky to be your only goalkeeper, or to be your main goalkeeper in your FPL team. So I don't mind them. As you can see, they actually have some of the highest projected points according to Fantasy Football Hub. So they are two of the better assets. I'm not interested. If I were to choose one specifically for double game week 7, I prefer Kaminsky. Longer term, though, if you're not wildcarding soon, or you've already wildcarded and you have to hold this keeper for a little bit longer term, I probably prefer Trafford to Kaminsky longer term. But neither of them are really standing out to me. When we look at the defenders, the only defenders that I'm discussing here are the £4 million defenders. That's not to say players like a Roberts or someone like that wouldn't be a decent option. But considering we have 4 relatively nailed, or at least high upside defenders for 4 million, I don't really see the value in spending any more than that on a Burnley or a Luton defender. And so we've got Kabore, Al-Dakhil, Bayer and Burke. Sorry if I butcher any names. I should note, I don't regularly watch Burnley and Luton. I'm not in the know. I'm basically going on what I can tell from the data, which is usually how I make these decisions anyway, but I really don't watch a massive amount of Burnley and Luton. But these 4 stand out because Al-Dakhil, Bayer and Burke all look relatively nailed. As you can see, 90 minutes per appearance for Al-Dakhil, 81 for Bayer and 84 for Burke. So I think those 3 you would expect to play both games in the double. And whilst Kabore's average minutes per appearance is 65, it does look like he is first choice at the moment, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him start both in the double. I think he's just slightly less nailed than the other 3. But as you can see by Kabore, his data is really, really good. We're looking at a 0.37 non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90 for Kabore. Almost all of that is made up for expected assists, barely any goal threat, but he is pretty creative and he does bomb up and down that wing and he does create chances as well. So to be honest, Kabore is one of those players where if you do need to downgrade Chilwell and you're looking to sell Chilwell this week and you don't want to spend a lot of money on a defender, maybe you've already got a Newcastle defender in your team, I really don't mind the idea of having Kabore in your team. And I would certainly be starting Kabore. If you're someone that started the season with him, because a few people did, I would definitely be starting Kabore. I would start Kabore ahead of Estepinian. I would start him ahead of definitely like a Ben Chilwell, maybe even ahead of a Saliba. And I know what you're thinking. Luton aren't a good defence. And I know they're not. But they've got 2 really, really good fixtures. If he plays both, he's got 2 chances for clean sheets. He's got 2 games worth of opportunities to get attacking returns. And let's say he plays 90 minutes in both games. 0.37 times 2. We're looking at a 0.74 non-penalty expected goal involvement based on the fixtures that they've had so far that he would accumulate over those 2 games. And on top of that, Luton haven't had the easiest fixtures. Everton and Burnley are arguably 2 of their better fixtures that they've had to start the season. So Kabore looks like a really decent asset to own in this double, and I am very, very jealous of people that started the season with him and have him in their team. Now, of course, we don't know if he'll start both. If he only starts one, all of a sudden it might feel like a slightly dodgy decision, but I feel like you've got to take the risk. Unless we see something in the press conferences or midweek that would make us think that he doesn't start, I think you take the risk and start Kabore. And as you can see, his data's even better than Morris's, which we'll move on to in a second. So I really do like Kabore. After Kabore, I think Burke would be my second favourite £4 million defender. So I wouldn't be touching the Burnley defenders just because one of their fixtures is Newcastle. But Kabore and Burke would be the 2 that I would have an eye on if you are looking for a cheaper defender. I'm personally just not interested. I don't think it's worth a transfer for me. I've already sold Ben Chilwell. So for me, I won't be touching either of the defences. When we look at the midfielders and the attackers, I really don't think there are many options at all, unfortunately. I think Brownhill, yes, now that he's back, he might be a decent option. His data last season in the Championship was actually pretty good. But obviously, just coming back from injury, we don't know if he's going to get enough minutes. Also, his data so far in the Premier League hasn't been fantastic. I think Brown's data is obviously great. It's the best on this list at 0.59 non-penalty expected goal involvement. And on top of that, he's been getting very decent minutes in the last 2 or 3 games. But again, he's not nailed on to start both. And I don't know that his minutes will be secure enough for me to take the risk there. I think Abdouni and Morris are the 2 that I would be most interested in. Like, if I was going to pick out 2 assets out of all of these double game week players, maybe alongside Kabore that I would be interested in, it is Abdouni and it is Morris. Both are obviously the 2 most expensive players on this list here. Abdouni just looks like he's relatively nailed at the moment. Of course, I would imagine that Foster being out offers one more spot in that attack for Burnley. And when I watch Burnley, and I watched more of the highlights than watching the full games, he just looks like he gets the opportunity to score goals. Now, his data is only a 0.41 non-penalty expected goal involvement, so by no means is this particularly impressive, but it is better than Morris, and if he does get decent minutes over the two in the double, I actually don't mind him as an option. So maybe that's an outside punt. If you're on a free hit, or maybe you aren't interested in Morris, but you still want a piece of that double game week, I don't mind Abdouni. And then we will move on to Morris to finish. I'm really struggling here because, like I said, I love double game weeks. And Morris has two things which I love. He's nailed, as nailed as you can maybe expect, considering he did come off early in one game. So he played 86 minutes per appearance so far in the Premier League. So maybe prone to a slightly early sub. But you would say you'd be very shocked if he didn't get at least 160 minutes in this double. So nailed on to probably get 160 to 180 minutes in the double. He's on penalties too. And the fixtures are just so good against Everton and Burnley. Like, they really are two good fixtures. So I love all of that stuff. Nailed pens, great fixtures, double game week, projected to get 8.1 points, everything you would want and more. But the data's just really not good. His non-penalty expected goals is shocking. Like, he's just not getting the chance to score goals. In fact, across the first 5 games for Luton of the season, of which he's played 90 in 4 of them, he hasn't accumulated one non-penalty expected goal. He's sitting at about a 0.7 non-penalty expected goals in total. That's not per 90. So, yes, he's got 2 great fixtures. And yes, again, those 2 fixtures are better than the opening 5 for Luton. He's just not showing me enough at the moment to really interest me. That isn't to say I won't bring him in, because I like the opportunity that you have, because regardless of what his data's been, he is on pens, he is their striker, and he probably will get opportunities in this double against 2 pretty weak defences. So I still don't think he's a terrible option. I'm struggling to get as excited as I usually do about double game week players, because even if you remember to last season, the season before that, when we had Dennis and King and João Pedro at Watford, I still got on board with that. I still bought them and I still captained them, because I like the idea of having increased opportunity to get FPL points and to get extra fixtures into my team. I'm just really struggling with this double game week for some reason for Luton and Burnley. A lot of people are saying that it's the optimal play to cap. I don't get the captaincy thing at all, right? I get if you want to bring in Morris, absolutely, because there aren't many good forwards at the moment. It's 2 excellent fixtures, and like I said, he's going to get good minutes. So I fully understand why you would want to bring in Morris. I'm not going to tell a single person not to do it. I just don't think that would be good advice to tell you not to do it. But I don't understand captaincy personally. When you've got Haaland there against Wolves, when you've got even like a Son against Liverpool, or if Saka is fit, and we'll discuss Saka at the end of the video, against Bournemouth, like there are so many options that you've got. I don't get, for me, the idea of captaining Morris, just personally myself. So I would love to know down below. That is my opinion on all of the double game week assets. Basically, I think it's Kabore, Abdouni, and Morris are the only 3 that I'm really interested in. How many double game week assets will you have? Are you going to own Morris? And if you are going to own Morris, are you tempted by captaincy? So I thought I would just tag this on at the end of the video, because whilst I was making the graphics for this video, and it usually is more sort of stats focused, these kind of preview videos, there was some news that Saka could be injured for game week 7. So I thought I would just discuss what we currently have. But the key thing to note here is just to wait, right? We're going to get a press conference later in the week. We'll get more information. We'll know if he's been in training. There's absolutely no need to panic at the moment around Saka. But we did get news today, and he did limp off of the North London derby, which is why he came off before the end of the game. We've got news today that apparently, according to Arteta, he's not been able to participate in training since the North London derby, and it is a possibility that he is unavailable for the Bournemouth game. Now, this was an EFL Cup press conference, and sometimes managers maybe overemphasize how bad an injury is, just to give reasoning for why they're going to give them a complete rest. So maybe Saka is injured, and maybe he hasn't been in training, but maybe it's not quite as bad as Arteta was letting on, and maybe he will be absolutely fine for the Bournemouth game, and he maybe just wanted to give him a complete rest. But I think it is worth looking into, because, to be honest, I think Saka's probably been struggling with this injury for a while. He's been flagged on numerous occasions in the past. He gets kicked a lot. He seems to hobble off towards the end of games. We've had some quotes in the past around the fact that he's still struggling with injuries too. So maybe it is something which will keep him out for a little bit, but there's no need to panic and make a move now. We might as well wait for further information. But I just wanted to say on Saka, he hasn't been great as an FPL asset recently, and I know that sounds crazy, and you might think, oh, it's because you sold him, and I did sell him 2 weeks ago. But in the last 2 weeks, he's put up 0.16 non-penalty expected goals. And I know some people don't like expected data, but he's just not had the opportunity to score goals. In fact, against Everton, do you know what his non-penalty expected goals were? 0. He didn't take a single shot. Not a single shot against Everton. And then in the North London derby, when we say Saka is amazing at home, Only 0.16 non-penalty expected goals. And even his assist threat hasn't been great. And I know he's picked up 2 assists, but one of them was a very, very lucky own goal. And the other one was a sort of five yards sideways pass, which, again, you could say he was quite lucky to pick up an assist. So I'm not saying Saka's a bad option. He's an excellent FPL asset. But recently, he's not been getting tons of chances to score goals and get assists outside of penalties. And I do truly believe he's been lucky in recent weeks to get the amount of points he has. So is he a terrible sell regardless? No, maybe not. Bournemouth away is a decent fixture, right? If he's available for Bournemouth, you don't want to sell him. But then City and Chelsea. City are the best defence in the league. Chelsea have actually been really good defensively recently. They just can't score. You probably do want him back for Sheffield United, but then it's Newcastle away. So all of this to say, if he is a doubt, I don't hate the idea of selling him, but I guess we'll discuss it more so later in the week. If he is a doubt for Game Week 7, whether it's worth selling him or if you should hang on to him. If he's available for Game Week 7, of course, just keep him. You're not going to sell him ahead of Bournemouth, but I think it's worth discussing if he's not confirmed as fit, because just lately the data's not been there. He's not getting as many chances. I don't think even eye test-wise, he's looked as great of an FPL asset. He's still a great footballer. He's still been performing well for Arsenal, but he's just not getting these clear-cut chances to score goals and to create goals too. So let's consider it. Let's wait. Let me know what you plan on doing with Saka down below. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 7 preview, my double Game Week 7 preview. If you did enjoy today's video, please do smash a like and make sure to subscribe as well. Just because we hit 100k doesn't mean you should stop subscribing. And also, in and around that, like I said, please do enter the giveaway. Go follow me over on Instagram, like both those pinned posts. And as I said, after the Game Week 7 deadline, I'll be revealing the 5 winners that will be getting a Premier League jersey of choice. And we will be doing more giveaways throughout the season over on Instagram too. Until next time, which will be tomorrow, my team selection video. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.